So here we are again for a next round. The advantage of virtual meetings obviously is that you can still get a replacement of speakers who have to run to very urgent meetings, while which is not possible when you are in one country. So I hope that Kenneth Güllenstein from Karlskrona municipality will take over the presentation from Ken Lindström, and for that purpose we will change a little bit the order. So we will first give the floor to Joachim Lohse, the former Senator of Transport, Environment and Construction in Bremen, and then Antoni Kittin, Vilnius Municipality. Then the floor will be yours. And then we hope Kenneth Güllenstein is mentally and physically prepared to jump in with the presentation of Karlskrona Municipality. And then we go as planned to Angelo Meulemann. So, I would like to invite Joachim Lohse. Joachim, you have been for 8 years the minister, the senator for environment, transport and construction. Environment and transport in one hand. In the city of Bremen, this is a good thing and a difficult thing. Can you be enough environmental to satisfy the mobility and transport wishes? Must you be too friendly to car drivers and you will not satisfy the environmentalists? I assume this is quite a stretching task, and I am sure you have learned a lot, and this gives you a good chance now to look to the future with all the backbone you have on your many years experience in steering environment and mobility policy. That's what we talked in the previous session. How can we integrate it really? You had integrated it, and you have a good thoughts and ideas and visions for the future, standing here today after so many years of being a politician. So maybe you give us your insights of that learning and looking to the future with all the challenges we face, including the COVID and this ping-ponging of modal shifts and intermodality and this influence. Joachim.
Good morning, Heidrun. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay, because I had
and we see you very brightly.
Technical problems all morning, so I'm glad it works. Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Heidrun, for the introduction. And before I start, thank you to the organizers of this conference, which has really been fantastic the last 3 days. I enjoyed it very much, and thank you for organizing all this for us. I will switch to full screen mode. How do I do it? Hang on, I click the image to share the screen, full screen. Do you see it coming up? Oh, I have to switch now to my presentation. Can you see my presentation now? Heidrun, are you still there?
Yes, I am there, but now it's in the right mode. Okay, perfect.
Okay, sorry, I'm not very familiar with these things. Yes, first to start, as Heidrun said, I've been a senator in Bremen for 8 years, and for those who do not know what a senator is, it's a double function, really. It's the function of a regional minister, the member of the regional government at the federal state level, and also it's at the municipal level, it's the function of the city councillor. So for 8 years, I've been responsible for the things which Rebecca has shown to you 2 days ago in the first presentation of this conference. And I really enjoyed the technical presentations we had the last 2 days about how to develop sustainable urban mobility plans, city logistics, commuting master plans, all the things we have heard. And Heidrun, you have asked me in preparing this conference after the technical input to be a bit more political. So I decided to be a little bit provocative also this morning, maybe to stir up some discussion. And that's why I called my presentation Sustainable Urban Mobility, how to achieve the impossible. And as you see, it's not all impossible, but it's sometimes a bit difficult. I start with my thesis. Humans are unable to adequately react to a crisis that approaches very slowly, such as, for example, climate change. Everybody knows about climate change for 25 years, but CO2 emissions are still increasing. For 20 years, we've been seeing the gradual degradation of high street retail in inner cities, but many cities still behave as if they were paralyzed by a completely new phenomenon. They do not know how to react. And also for many, many years, we've seen the increasing number of cars flooding public space, the cars becoming ever bigger, but only few people seem to have an idea how to protect urban space from being totally flooded by cars. Fortunately, in this conference, many of you know how to do it, and we are discussing here to see how we can make progress. An acute crisis is different, such as the COVID-19 crisis, and I will a little bit speak about it. We've seen immediate reaction to protect public health all over the place, maybe not in the United States, but in many other countries. We've seen these reactions. And governments work hard to prevent the total collapse of their local economies. And that's because the corona crisis is acute. It is disrupting trends that were believed to be permanent. It mobilizes heaps of money, and it unleashes in societies unexpected creativity and preparedness to experiment, where normally people are very resistant to change. And what we see that in such conditions, the governments and parliaments, they can deliver in a few days what in other times take years to discuss, and also the people react. I don't want to bore you with the dynamics of the crisis. We have all witnessed the start from China, the spread to Europe, jumping over to the United States. We have now some 27 million infections worldwide. 900,000 people have died from the disease, or at least with the COVID-19 disease. We've seen the lockdown of schools, restaurants, of all the public life in many, many countries. Borders have been closed, travel has been banned. And this shows also in the following figures, like car sales have gone in Europe, gone down by 3/4. Air travel globally has decreased 70%. Sea cruises are cancelled by almost 100%. And what we see here is that even a stable trend that we thought that would last forever can end all of a sudden. And the optimistic message here is there is no reason for fatalism, because change doesn't come immediately. Rather, you have to wait for the right moment for change. And in any case, political engagement is worth the effort. I said that people change their behavior. We've seen this also in the little poll that was made on the first day of this conference, when we were asked, the conference participants, how our mobility habits have changed during the crisis. So we see that people do more walking, they use the bicycle more than they did before. So that is just people by themselves without any push from the government. They change their behavior. And we see that enormous amounts of money are being mobilized at the local level, like in Bremen, at the national level, the European or the North American level. These are amounts of money that were unthinkable of 1 year ago, when everybody was confronted with budget discipline, budget constraints to consolidate the public budget. So we have a moment in history right now when enormous amounts of money are being moved around, with the purpose to revitalize the economies, the purpose to boost industrial activity, to stimulate consumption, and to strengthen public infrastructure. And hopefully, this money will also be spent to promote energy efficiency, to reduce energy consumption, and to reduce CO2 emissions. But that's not guaranteed. For example, in Germany, we have an intense debate right now how the car industry can be supported. Some people say we need buying incentives for cars in general, whatever engine it has, while others say we should support the industry only with buying incentives for cars with innovative power unit, like electric propulsion or hydrogen or whatever. So it is really crucial how this money is invested right now. And as we see how trends are disrupted, money becomes available and people change their behavior. There can only be one conclusion, and that is never waste a good crisis. It's a quote from Winston Churchill at the beginning of the Second World War. And that is because the crisis is an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. And why is this so? It is so because there is a new willingness to experiment in societies. Bogota was the first town in the world to develop pop-up bike lanes, which we have now seen in many cities. In Hamburg, there has been one opened just on last Sunday. Paris is excluding cars from the city. They are transforming parking lots into green parks. Hamburg is discussing to reorganize a boulevard in the center of the city to become a really nice promenade rather than a broad street. Bremen is discussing a bicycle highway where was a broad street before. And there's even a town in Germany that is proposing to give wrecking incentives to their citizens if they wreck their cars. And instead they buy a one-year ticket for public transport, they get a subsidy of 500 euros. So I believe that all these ideas are very good ideas and they deserve a good chance to be realized, but there is no guarantee that they will be realized, nor is there a guarantee that they will stay for permanent once they have been put into place. And there are many examples when such concepts, no matter how broadly agreed they were beforehand, have been blocked and stalled by local politics. And I will give you a concrete example from my personal experience. I heard these 2 days that many of you have referred to Bremen as a very advanced place. Rebecca had shown in her presentation that there is an avant-garde approach to urban mobility in Bremen. But it is not the whole society that is thinking like this. In 2014, I made a proposal to narrow a broad street in the heart of the historical city center of Bremen, because this is a canyon that is dividing the pedestrian zone on the right-hand corner. You see it here with all the shopping area from the riverbank, a recreational area with beer gardens, a high recreational value, and people felt that the city would become more attractive if people could move around from one side to the other, but this street was really dividing the city. So I made a proposal to narrow this street so that people could cross it more easily. And there was a critical article in the newspaper and a very critical comment that I would pull out an outmoded idea from a dusty drawer just to please my own Green Party. And some drawers should be tightly locked forever. We have enough real problems. That was the first press reaction. And the funny thing was, it was not only my own idea, but we had developed it jointly with the Senator for Transport, myself, the Senator for Economy, and the Chamber of Commerce. So these three institutions together, they had produced this 100-page booklet, which has a list of top-ranking projects. And all I had done is ask for money to plan how to narrow the street. But then when the lobby groups attacked me, then the Minister of Economy and the Chamber of Commerce, they lost their courage and they stepped away from these plans. The Social Democrats, our coalition partner, they blocked the whole initiative. The Boulevard Press, they spoke of a government crisis in Bremen, and then I received really rude comments from readers of the local newspaper. What's going on in this mad brain? This idea is crazy. Loos is a problem for Bremen, unbearable. The sad news for this last person writing this comment is that I was in office 5 more years, so they had to bear me a bit longer. But that was 6 years ago. And now after the Corona crisis, look what happened in Bremen. The new Senate held an emergency summit, how to stabilize Bremen's inner city. And they convened the Senate, members of the parliament, the Chamber of Commerce, the Retailers Association, and engaged citizens. And they discussed the same project again, the vast canyon, as the newspaper was calling it. And then there was a very positive article. Finally, the Senate is tackling Martini Street, this Broad Street, and Domshof. It was presented as a milestone for Martini Street. And then there was a newspaper comment, which I like very much. It said the Senate had to deliver, and finally he did. Narrowing the street has been discussed for decades. Everybody has long been in favor of it. Why did it take so long? So what do we learn from this? In a crisis like the Corona crisis, there are enormous opportunities for sustainable mobility. Car-free city centers become a realistic vision. Bicycle sales and bicycle use are jumping up. Walking becomes popular. People develop a new preference for near-range destinations. But there are also serious challenges, and I want to speak 2 more minutes about this. The main challenge is to public transport, because people feel safer in their own car than in public transport. Use of trains, buses, and trams has decreased dramatically, and the public transport companies are expected to improve the offer, to buy more vessels, to hire more drivers, to allow for social distancing. We had a poll among ourselves also that people are using public transport less. And for example, in Berlin, the transport company, they earned 90% less money from ticket sales, 90% less in spring this year. The Washington Post was concerned about almost empty commuter trains in the United States, which have a poor system of public transport anyhow. And now people are debating, how can we make public transport more attractive? And some come up with the idea to make it cheaper, or to even offer it free of cost to make the people come back. And I think this will not work. Even the French paper Le Monde, 1 month before the COVID-19 crisis, they already said that free transport is not the most important thing. The important thing is the offer and not the price. And my message here is, if you want to improve public transport, then do not withdraw money from it. And I want to speak out a clear warning. I think that COVID-19 is a threat to existence of public transport because its financial basis is undermined from 2 sides. The revenues from ticket sales are eroding, improved service is expected, and the costs are rocketing upwards. And therefore, it is very, very important that we stabilize public transport. And I think that public transport free of charge for everybody is wrong. So to finalize, in my opinion, sustainable mobility requires a good offer of multimodal transport. We've seen many examples of that during this conference. It needs to stabilize public transport. It is the backbone of multimodal transport. But if we only focus on these 2, it will be unaffordable for public budgets, and it will be ineffective for changing behavior unless there are restrictions also for the use of private cars. We have to push back individual motorized traffic with speed limits, ban of cars from inner cities, parking fees and control, serious penalty fees for illegal parking, city maut, and also with reducing free parking in residential areas, like this little example where parking space for car was transformed in parking space for bicycles. These are good initiatives. We need both push and pull factors to come to more sustainable mobility systems. And this can be very well supported by symbolic action like this picture. I think it was in Latvia a couple of years ago when people showed how much space is consumed if the bicycle users would drive cars with these bamboo cages they constructed. These actions are very good for public opinion. And my recommendation is to use the momentum of the crisis. The right time to take action for better transport systems is now, because the tax revenues are collapsing, the public deficit is dramatically increasing, and the money that is spent now can only be spent once, either for business as usual or for sustainable mobility and climate protection. And so my message is, let's work hard to make sure that the right decisions are taken during and after the Corona crisis. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Joachim, and you also deserve an applause from all of us here and around. Well, someone there will be a little sign saying that the mad brain of Senator Lose has initiated the change, and then you will walk in the pedestrian area of the street and think, well, I told you before. This is a good thing. Thank you very much, Joachim. We will later come to a discussion about the opportunities for the public transport. We will also touch a bit the danger of the COVID and the public transport and what local authorities can do. But of course, I understand it is very good to have all the experience of being the minister or the senator for environment and transport to come to such conclusions, but you don't have to implement them right now at the moment. You are not anymore in the municipality, and we will now walk to Vilnius and to ask Anton Nikitin. You heard the inspiring words from Joachim to use the momentum of the crisis. Anton, you are a partner of the City Multimodal project, and you're from the Vilnius municipality, and Esther, who is with us in the organization team of the conference. She recommended Vilnius to take the floor here, because she says Vilnius is a capital of a country, and Vilnius dares really to do something. So tell us, what will you do in future? Also thinking about what Joachim said, what are his recommendations? Are you implementing them as well? Is this what you think as well? And where are the barriers, and how do you solve them? What's your action plan, your vision for the next years in Vilnius? Anton.
Hi everybody. Introduction. I think I will try to share the desktop, but it's not really working. Not sure. Marta, could you help me with that?
Yeah. So click the third button, the screen share button. Yeah.
And nothing is happening.
Maybe the computer is a bit slow, but if nothing's happening, we can try refreshing the browser and you join again. Maybe that will help.
Yeah, I will try to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
hello again. So let's try. You click the third button. Yeah. Ah, yes,
yep,
we can
it's
see the
working.
screen.
Good.
Yes, great.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm really happy and excited to participate in this panel, and also to listen to all those good examples, and also to think about COVID as the opportunity, and we are doing that. But even before COVID, we were doing a lot to change our city in the last 4 to 5 years. And as I see it, and as I kind of look back now, so I see that basically a lot of small steps can lead to another big change, and I'm here to talk about it a bit more, how Vilnius was doing that. Just a short introduction. So what is Vilnius? Vilnius is a capital of Lithuania. It has around 600,000 residents, and it's a growing city, about up to 3% in the last 3 years. We are one of the basically fastest moving cities. We have one of the lowest commuting time. It's about 28 minutes on average. And then we jokingly say that we have so many mobility options that no other city has. But yeah, we count in kayaking and hot air ballooning. So basically you can move around in a very different ways in Vilnius. About my company, which I work for, it's susisiekimo paslaugos in Lithuanian, hard to pronounce to anybody who is not Lithuanian, but basically it's the transport services company, which is becoming a city mobility competence center. It was established in 1998 as the public transport agency, but then on-street parking management was added and traffic light management function was added. We started to coordinate the cycling projects in 2015, and since 2019, when the SUMP was approved, we are responsible for its implementation. So we're basically growing family of mobility geeks who really love their job and try to make a change in the city. So about the SUMP, just shortly, it was approved in December of 2018. It sets priorities and goals for the next decade, and it aims at balancing the mobility choices and well, basically making Vilnius an even better place for people and a really nice and vibrant city. So as all the cities, we were facing and we still are facing a lot of challenges, and most of them are obviously connected to the mobility. So whether it's time spent in traffic jams, or it's safety issues, or noise, or other pollution, or even 40% of cars in the old town going through the city, not having anything to do there, which is, well, our old town is protected by UNESCO. So we got to do something about it, and we did, and it's a really recent, we closed it to transit to make this traffic circulation plan, so that there is no possibility to go through, but you can just go in the loops and then get to the place you need. The future goals, so in 2017, when the CUMP was started to be prepared, well, we had this quite the picture where every second trip was made by car. What we want to do by 2030, we want to balance it out, as a lot of cities want to do. So basically have 30% of trips made by car, 30% transportation, another 30% by foot, and then around 8% by cycling, and then 4% shared cars and other means of transportation. We hope to achieve that even faster, because, well, we see that thanks to COVID, so some of the things we are moving so fast to achieve, because well, we have bike counters around the city, and they this year we have 66% more cyclists than last year in those places where the counts are. So that's quite a big number, a big growth. So I will go through what is happening in Vilnius and what small details that created big changes we implemented. So so we started with making cycling great, and step by step we did a lot of things. So sorry. Vilnius established the cycling officer position in 2015 and set cycling as one of the political priorities of the city. Also did some homework to see what's the quality of the infrastructure we had, and it was quite bad. We had around 500 fixed, and then we found that well, there is quite a lot of infrastructure which doesn't meet any good quality criteria. Then we created the quality standard, looking at the best examples basically in Europe, how our infrastructure should look like, and then we added the function to report the problems on the bike lanes, so that the citizens get more involved. Then we did a lot of the annual surveys now, just to see if the things we do bring us results, then we started the Bike Friendly Streets initiative to inform car drivers that in certain streets they should expect more and more cyclists. We did free route maps. We built 2,000 bike racks. We opened social media platform, social media page on Facebook just to discuss the projects, and we were where the cyclist communities are, and we're discussing our plans and what we're going to do and what's on the designs. And I told about the cyclist counters, which every day count more and more cyclists, and then we are planning to do even more. So some of the things, soft measures, we are going to expand the calm traffic zones, which is a project in progress, and Matthew zone 30 limits, and we are really to be set in more places. That we are gonna establish some storage facilities and also some mobility point. Some of them will be with some kind of storage facilities. Will be just bike racks at the main bus stop, so that you from your bike to the bus or electric. And well, look at this these things we did brought from quite nice comfort to red asphalt bike paths, and brought it from 2015 to 80 kilometers in 2019, and we aim at finishing the main network by so that we have around 150 to 160 kilometers infrastructure, the urbanized areas in the city, and people really. Also, what we are focused is doing some kind of, we call it tactical urbanism, but it's just meaning to use the road space smarter. So some streets we just put the lane against the traffic, and some streets we even space parking, have focus and bi-directional cycle path or other solution. This gave us and the results, I think, are quite okay. In 2016, gave to cycling infrastructure was 4.6, and so we were growing rapidly every year. And as I said, by 2030, we will have hope to have 8% of total trips in the city made by bike, and then fully developed cycling main network, but the whole network will be more than away from cycling infrastructure, and also really expand the calm traffic streets as part of the safe cycling infrastructure. What's next? Well, cycling is good, but we really want to focus on pedestrians as well. And the thing is that we are fixing a lot of blocks, which may sound really kind of basic and hygienic part of the city, but the thing is that for decades there was so little of the sidewalks and pedestrians fixed. We had quite for the last years. We've been fixing 25 to 35 kilometers every year. But we have a really smooth place to walk. Then we that people would see that going sometimes work much time as you would expect to, and more people we see using them and the maps and everything. Also the that we do have just the paved tree there, a bench and everything else, so that we will look at the infrastructure with more a holistic approach. Then the tactical urbanism gives for even in narrow streets, which was really car dependent. There was only parking and waterway on the bench and the street changes completely. And we also started to inventory what kind of infrastructure we had. We were fixing some curves. It needs more universal concepts, but you're gonna more in-depth quality control of what we have in the city, plan the infrastructure updates better. So we also one of we see the increase of satisfaction, and also citizens. It's 2/3 of citizens more than think that pedestrian infrastructure got better in the past. So we're gonna go and keep improving and do more holistic. Then the transportation, really important thing in the city. So we the city started with the applications for trip planning and ticket. And, there is more new apps could be available to the trip, the schedules, and then the public transport lanes. There were some. They really renewed the fleet. So in the last 3 years, the city or purchased vehicles, trolley buses. 70% of the buses are brand new, and then if you would see the whole fleet of buses and trolley buses, around 50% vehicle is. We also built some new electric buses. What we do, we ask people to the public transportation so that they could give their opinion, maybe made earlier or later, so that it meets needs, and we are trying to get all that information and involve the public into planning process. In the last couple of years, we added some 8 kilometers of public transport, and 11 more kilometers is to come in the next, so that the public transportation is as fast and as good as possible, and also acquire new buses and trolley buses, and expand the schedules, electronics, so ticket system, which we're probably and willing to integrate trains and also the buses from the metropolitan area in the city. That the time we got the passengers escort bus about, and it's the highest rating we got this or before. And what's our plan? So by 2023, vehicles in the fleet not older than 2030, on having vehicles which are fossil fuels. So That's the ambition for the next decade. The car traffic management also really important part. So at some areas, the implement the computerized system with the for the cars. At the moment, it brings some point more problems than solutions, but it helps for. We also updated the system recently, which helped to react to the time situation way quicker, 3 times quicker than before. We introduced the new traffic lights for cyclists. There was equipment bought, and then the speed camera and red light and then control required in the next couple of years. What we did also in expanding zones and the most expensive ones. This all is the most expensive zones before years before it was only streets which were in the most expensive zone, and we are gonna expand so that we exciting thing would happen. As I said, we introduced the for the old towns, the old town with a car, and also together with what we did, some streets for only, and Vilnius opened the street public areas in the old town for the outdays, and basically as cafe wanted they bought in the that to come in reaction with the challenges, and some of the streets, even though cafes will be gone for winter, which usually happens, and also in the old town, what we did, there's a lot of one-way streets for cars, and we made cycling legally available both direction on all the streets in the old town, and we're going to expand that as well. And also,
okay, time is a bit running.
Yeah. Good. So the last slide then, and what we introduced also is the brand, which actually connects all the moving the mobility options. In Lithuanian, it calls Judu. It's if you translate, it's so I move, and it's a really catchy name, which got everybody excited, and so we bring this approach to Judu to make a lot of multimodal solutions in the future, and make mobility a really nice thing for everybody, and to communicate with the public. So yeah, here we go.
Thank you very much, Anton, and you get a super trooper applause. Really great.
Thank you.
And we will later in the panel ask you, how do you take the people along? Sure. I understand now that we do not have a formal presentation from Karlskrona, but we will later have a little comment from Kenneth Gullenstring in the discussion, if that is correct. We will move now to Angelo Möllermann from Taxi Stop. I think you must be really, really excited about the Vilnius presentation. Anton did not tell us how difficult it was to get the people involved. He showed all the positive polls. Everybody is very satisfied. So Vilnius must be the top shiny model of a new mobility concept in town, and everybody is happy. Angelo, you deal with everybody is happy and with involvement of people into urban mobility concepts and how to make dialogues more meaningful. Maybe you could give us your insights, your presentations, and also connect a little bit to what we heard right now. Seems to be very easy, everything, right?
Indeed. So my mission is to make everybody happy. So first time I hear that. So as you can see, I'm not sitting where I live. I'm sitting in a Swiss hotel right now, but I'm actually from Belgium. I will share my presentation with you. So I think you can see it right now. So can you confirm that you see my presentation? Because I can't see you right now. I hope so. I'm from Belgium. So normally if you are from Belgium, you start talking about beer. And what you can see right here is a home beer tap. It's a very nice tool. It costs more than 250 euros. From what we know, this isn't used. People buy it, but like 70% is not using it for a tool of 250 euros. But still they are buying it. And this is the same what's happening sometimes with new mobility solutions or urban design. So we think that something is great, we start to promote it, and maybe some people, they accept it, but are not really waiting for it. And this is why public involvement is important to avoid buying expensive things. So I'm working for Taxi Stop. We are more working on creating solutions about shared and connected mobility. Carpooling, car sharing, but also we are connecting it. So the mobility hubs are important work for us. We innovate and we are working on awareness. If you talk about public involvement, very often it's a recipe for a headache, I think, from the city perspective of the authorities. So public involvement is really slowing progress. It's like a pain in the, you know what. So, but also for people living in the city, so very often if they create something new, they're thinking, why don't they listen to us? We don't need this, or we need something else. So it's a tricky thing. I will talk about some cases and then later on how you can involve citizens. You might know this movie. It's already quite old. You can see it on the pixels in this picture. A bridge too far. This bridge is not in Belgium. This bridge is in the Netherlands. But we have also in Belgium one bridge that was planned and that bridge was too far. You know, you can see this. This is the skyline that was a plan to be the skyline in the city of Antwerp. It was a huge project to close the ring around Antwerp. For many years, there was congestion in the city. So the government and the city government, the Flemish and the Antwerp government decided to make a huge project with huge impact on the people living in the city. So there was a whole process of 25 years. They started with the idea we have to reduce congestion around Antwerp. I think everyone agreed with that. And they selected 6 scenarios to create a solution for that. Many years later, there was a decision about route and the concept. It was a plan to build bridges, huge bridges and tunnels, to make more highways inside the city, even on nice design bridges, but okay, it was a huge decision. Of course, the people from Antwerp, they didn't agree with that, and they asked for involvement. So they organized themselves and they asked for involvement. So it took from many years discussions, and in 2009, finally, after another election, there was a referendum organized, and the people of Antwerp, of course, they voted no now on such a huge project, not taking into account the needs of the people living close by. At that moment in 2009, I think the alderman responsible for the urban development and transport, he really wanted to stop with it. He was really sick of it. And it was like a victory for the citizen movement. So it was a different feeling, perception of those citizen movements. So some people working for the government or maybe the administration was really tired of it, but some respect grew also. So, and it was in the beginning of this of those new movements. So the image of them, the perception was, okay, they are just like hippies. They're always against things. It's always easy to say no, but respect started to grow because it's misunderstanding of this movement that they are now experts. Sometimes they are experts, and those groups are much more multidisciplinary than most administrations. So they are designers, they are psychologists, they are engineers. Also in their spare time, they are also inhabitants and engaged to be part of those groups. So years later, after discussions, after a long standstill, it was a decision to appoint an intendant, a neutral person who had to negotiate and find a solution, a compromise between the government and the city and the citizen movements. It took a couple of years. They found a new scenario, not one of the 6 scenarios, but a 7th scenario. And in 2017, they have signed a future governance. They call it like a peace statement for preferred variants. So they had decided to create Oosterweel Light as the name of Oosterweel is the name of the project. It was a light project, safer and integrated in the urban environment. So there was much more support, but it took 25 years. So now they started to dig in the ground. But what happened during those 25 years in Flanders, we've learned that public involvement is important, that those groups, respect has grown, and it was not only for this project, but in many other projects also. Now I'm going to show you another case. You might know the city. It's my city, it's the city of Ghent. It's a beautiful city, and I would like to apply to be a Baltic region city also with the city of Ghent, because working together in the Baltic region is really nice, and you're welcome to visit this city. What is the case in our city? A couple of years ago, our city government started to create a new plan, a circulation plan. So before that, traffic could drive through the city. That created a lot of congestion inside the city, and of course, cars were driving through those neighborhoods. So it was decided to have to split up the city in different lobes, and not longer possible to drive through the city. So you can drive inside the lob, but not from one lob to another lob inside the city center. It started in 2017, this project. Of course, it had an enormous impact on people living there. So people didn't really accept it. So there was a lot of protests coming from the local economy, who was thinking we won't be accessible anymore, but also coming from inhabitants, etc. But our alderman, Philippe Poitou, he was really enthusiastic about the idea. It was supported by the whole city government, so he went forward. And 1 year later, it seemed that the people of Ghent were really enthusiastic. They did a survey. The majority was enthusiastic, not everyone, but the majority was enthusiastic. It was measured that neighborhoods became more livable, and there was a clear modal shift. It was even before Corona that people were doing a modal shift towards cycling and walking. So the result was positive. I asked last week Philippe Poitou, our alderman, about some tips, because there was not so much participation. And there was just after launching the project, he went to different neighborhoods and he talked with people. So, and now there are new circulation plans in neighborhoods. They will integrate more participation from the beginning, but it wasn't there. But as an advice, he told me you have to be consistent. not changing your plans or your ideas. You have to choose a direction. So public involvement is not really changing your plan, but it is important. It can improve your plan. He also gave us an advice that if people are protesting, you have to listen to them and find the essence. Sometimes the main message is not really the essence of their message. And another important lesson learned was that opposition is always louder. The positive voices follow later. They don't yell that loud. This is an important lesson also. So that was an example of public involvement, or a lack of public involvement, but the straight direction of the city of Ghent. And now I'm going to my neighborhood. It's part of the city of Ghent, but it's a little bit outside the city center. It's called Drongen. So we had a main square, and it was just a parking. There was a main cafe nearby, Café de Parking. So that was how our city was a couple of years ago, our neighborhoods. So it was an idea to redesign the square going from parking to a green square. And what they did, it was already like 10 years ago, or even a little bit more, they organized some participation during the annual fair. And people could vote on 3 different mood boards. So if you want to have a square with a fountain, etc., then you can vote this mood board A. If you want to have something with a lot of benches and a little bit more green, you can vote on B, etc. So that was the participation. And then, okay, the plans were designed, and this guy, his name was in the newspaper, Mr. Petition Man. He gathered more than 1,000 signatures against those ideas. And the city organized a public meeting, and during the public meeting there was a lot of opposition, and the plan was cancelled. The alderman was not really consistent. She said, okay, then we stop it, we will use the money for something else. So the plan was cancelled. The new alderman later, Philippe Watteau again, he learned, okay, we have to do it differently. And he started to organize like labs, round tables. People from Drongen, from our neighborhood, were invited to participate. Young people, older people, also people working in the local shops, so different kind of people. And they started to talk with each other and draw plans. And as a result, it was more than a square. They said, okay, if you want to solve a problem, it's not only about the problem on the square, but also the surrounding streets. So it was about parking in the surrounding streets. They started to think also about the school nearby. So you cannot talk about the square without thinking about the impact on the school traffic nearby. Okay, what happened with the plans? Even they removed more parking place on the square than the alderman in the plan before. So, and it was just a matter of talking with each other and understanding each other. This was what really happened in this participation project. And what we've learned also about this participation is that you really can use this local expertise, which is not always in the city administration, especially from specific neighborhoods. So the plans were much better. This is how it looked like right now. So there was a common understanding developed. There was much more creativity than it was before, and the local expertise was used. So those were 3 cases of public involvement. The first, and you can talk about representation. It's a democratic right that the majority, the government, can take decisions. And sometimes it's important to follow and be consistent in a clear direction, but it's often not enough. You can also organize a poll. A simple referendum, yes or no, or maybe ask 3 examples. That can work for simple questions, but the risk of it is that it polarizes the people in the city, and it doesn't create public support at all. And then you have real participation. This is time intensive, it's really time consuming, but this time you win it back. You can see that we have lost 25 years in Antwerp, and that was because they didn't organize the participation from the beginning. It creates also common understanding and support for the decisions. Now, you might know this man, Jan Geel.
Angelo, but you know about the time, yeah? 3 minutes?
Okay, I will go fast. So, Jan Geel, he was saying, if you ask kids about the skateboard, what they think about the skateboard if they don't know it, so it doesn't matter. And it's the same with public involvement. So in the previous presentation, there was something about tactical urbanism. It's important to organize those moments in summertime, but even outside summertime, just showing that people do experiment with the streets. In Ghent, we are doing it in the living streets. It's in many streets, 20, 30 streets for 1 month, or even 2 months in summer. So there's another example of what can happen with streets. In Brussels this summer, we've organized special moments on the parking lots, which were saved by car sharing. And people were really seeing what could happen with their streets. Another example is some kind of living lab to test certain kinds of shared mobility. You cannot ask them, what do you think about bike sharing, if people are not aware what it really is. And it was a test, 30 days without a car with an offer of different modes. Also with the mobility hubs in Flanders, we start in the city of Leuven, they start to talk with people, also testing the different modes. And then they ask, okay, what about your neighborhood? This is another way to inspire the people. There's a role also for the NGOs. My organization is an NGO, and we were inspired by the city of Bremen about the Mobilpunkte. So thanks Joachim Lohse and Rebecca. And we've launched this idea in 2017 in Flanders. And with a lot of passion, we promoted this idea for many years. And what happened, if you listen to the NGOs, and if the NGOs are using their vision and their passion, so this can happen. Now, this summer, our minister has decided to create a budget of plus 100 million euros to create 1,000 mobility hubs in Flanders. An idea born in Bremen and used by the NGOs in Flanders. So this is a slide about design thinking. It's not only about public space, it's also about apps, about solutions like mobility as a service. And very often we start with public involvement from the prototyping phase or even the testing phase, but sometimes we forget even to know if it's really necessary. What do you really need? And using design thinking is an important methodology to create good solutions. And to my last slide, you can see living street in Ghent, and on the table you see a beer. You see a couple of beers. And I started my presentation with the home tap. It was not really the solution. The beer experience is not really about the beer, the tapping, but it is about the people, about the company. It's a social aspect. And that was because in the design, they didn't use design thinking. They started with too late. And this is an example. Have a nice beer with the company is an example of design thinking. So I think this was on time.
Yes, thank you very much, Angelo. And you have deserved also an applause from all of us. Good. I would then like to ask Marta to create a panel of persons. So we need Joachim, we need Anton, Angelo is there. And we also wanted to have Kenneth Gullenstring from Karlskrona municipality on the panel. And we have Thomas and we have Matthew. Yes. Okay. So my very, very male panel, we had a problem with the gender issue when inviting the speakers for the panel, but I think my red scarf counts triple. So, Kenneth, I would like to give at first the floor to you from Karlskrona. We were supposed to have a presentation from your colleague Ken Lindström, and he had to go to another urgent meeting. I learned that Karlskrona is a small municipality with a lot of area around it, so commuting to it is very important, and you have a lot of good solutions but very, very little resources. You have now seen all these shiny presentations from Anton, from Angelo, from Joachim, and the mobile hubs walking from Bremen to Flanders. How is it in Karlskrona? What can you do in a small town in Sweden with a very, very limited resources?
Well, yeah, Karlskrona, the municipality of Karlskrona has 66,000 inhabitants, but the city itself has around 30,000. But nevertheless, the city center is really dense. It's a real stone town, so we have a lot of problems with congestion and stuff. We have a lot of people commuting in here, and there is only one road because the whole city center is on one island, and a lot of people work here. We have, for instance, we are the head office, or what you call it, the head base for the Swedish Navy, and the naval base is connected to the city center on the same island. So we have a lot of people commuting here. We have a lot of big companies. So that road is really congested. So we have been working in the CMM project and other projects, of course, to try to limit the traffic in the city center. And one of the things we are doing is that we wanted to implement a good car sharing system that our inhabitants could use. But of course, we don't have so many people that can take part in it, as we are a small municipality. So what we did, it was that we created a semi-open car sharing system where the cars during the most of the cars, not all, are used during the daytime for the municipality, for our transportation when we are going to meetings and other stuff. So we don't have any own cars in the municipality, but we rent them from a private company, which also rents the cars to the municipality inhabitants. So anyone can go in. It's a website where anyone can book it. And what is a little special about this is also that we have a bike sharing system in the same app, so you can book both car and bike in the same app. And of course, it's electric cars and electric bicycles. We also have cargo bikes in the system. So what has happened is that we have a very good financing of it, and the company is really happy, and we have a lot of use, and everything is working smooth. So the municipality is helping to set the base for the car sharing system. And I'm sorry that I can't show. I don't know if I can share my screen, because I have a picture of our very, very nice mobility point where this is. I don't know. Is it possible? No.
Yes, you can share your screen. You have to click.
Yeah.
There's a button on the bottom. There is a screen symbol, and you can
yes,
click
I have
on it.
clicked on that, but I can't click on the share symbol. I don't know why. Or perhaps.
Okay, it seems we are so many people that then the screen sharing doesn't work anymore. It only works with the one presenter. Okay.
Okay. But
I think we got a nice impression. Yeah.
Yeah. But another thing which I was going to show that I'm unfortunate, because it's a very beautiful picture. It's I don't know if Martha can show the last picture of the slide.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Okay.
Of Kent's slide. The very final picture there. Or perhaps not. Well, anyway, we have combined solar and wind power plant. That's, yeah, there it is. Well, now Marta's name is blocking it, but under this solar and wind power plant, which is called the Giraffe, there we have all our e-bikes parked and also the car between it. And that is also the place where the car ferries to all the archipelago is docking. So it's a good mobility point, and we have buses nearby. And so the e-cars and e-bikes are in that area. And actually, we were. It's a good thing because if we hadn't put up this special station which is charging the cars and some of the cars and all the bikes, then we would have to had a lot of expensive new electrical cable having been dug down to this area. But because we put up this thing, which wasn't really cheap, but we got way cheaper even because we didn't have to reinforce the electrical grid. So it's also a nice touch to it. Well, I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. So we see that in all cities and municipalities are ideas and they can be implemented. There is a lot of examples. Matthew, you wanted to have examples. You posted in the chat that you want examples from cities, how to implement the ideas of sustainable mobility. Did you get some ideas now?
Well, I certainly did. And I just, for fun, hearing Kenneth talk about Karlskrona, I found an old picture of some bike infrastructure in Karlskrona, which I cycled around in 2019, which was great to see. So you've got plenty of room for your new bike sharing schemes, Kenneth. No, I mean, I've heard so many interesting things, variations on low traffic neighborhoods. I see echoes of the Barcelona superblocks idea. Tactical urbanism. Fascinating to hear what Ghent is doing, Angelo, and thank you for that. And I know there's a good competition between you and the city of Brussels, the Brussels region. They were telling me the other day they were very envious that you've uncovered part of your urban rivers, and they're going to try and do the same in Brussels. And you've also tackled the intensely political and difficult question of car parking, as well as speed limits. I know there's a lot of us on this panel. I've said things already, and I've been generally rather optimistic on this in this discussion today. So I want to sound a downbeat warning, which is we've done some great things. Sorry, you have done some absolutely great things in the different cities with COVID. We've seen incredible new bike infrastructures, and Joachim, you mentioned a lot of the cities that have done it. My worry, let me be frank, my worry is that we're going to wake up one day, we're going to draw back the curtains, and we're going to see the old normal has reasserted itself. And people are scared to use public transport. There's been some bad public messaging, I think, by governments on public transports, implying it's not safe, whereas in fact they're trying to, at one point they were trying to keep it free for essential workers. We've got to get people back into public transport. We've got to think about what support we can offer from the EU level, and we've got to keep the active mobility going. So my big plea to cities that have thrown up temporary schemes is really prioritize ways of making them permanent, because otherwise we'll wake up and we'll find we've lost what we've gained, and the increases in bike levels will descend, and autumn will be on us, and the weather will be wet, and it'll rain, and everyone's going to give up. So we can't. That's my plea to you. Keep pushing.
Okay. Is there somebody who would like a quick reaction on that? You simply have to raise your hand like this. Hopin doesn't allow any other raising your hand, and talk. Unmute your microphone. Anton and then Thomas.
So yeah, I would like just to add to Matthew that well, it's not only about the COVID. It's about the cities that just say that we are on track and implement the SUMBs, and then we don't lose that plan and go step by step. Temporary measures are really good, but we have to go for for full-time measures, and then our example really showed that if you build infrastructure, the cyclists, they come independently of COVID or not, and if you build nice streets, and if you treat streets as public spaces, not the transport arterias, then people will come there and will stay there. So that's, I think that's the main takeaway here.
Yes, John, you say if you build infrastructure for cycling, the cyclists will come. If you make the streets attractive, the people will sit. But usually politicians want it the other way around. They want to have safety that when they do this, they will be re-elected. Otherwise, they will be called without the brain. So, Joachim, how does this go together? You have faced that several times as being the person on whom to throw all the darts. It sounded so easy what Anton said. Oh yeah, we just build, then they come. Is it so?
Actually, I do share Matthew's concerns about what will happen after the COVID-19 crisis, because the subsidies for public transport, they are not guaranteed. They depend on future parliament decisions. So even if now you are feeling safe that these subsidies will be coming, it is always important when you invest in infrastructure, what are the running costs, the operating costs of it. And for politicians, it is really nice to open up a new tramway, to introduce a new electric bus. You have the nice photographs. But to take care of the running costs of it, it's much more critical. So cycling infrastructure does not need so much operational cost, but still you have to clean it in autumn when the leaves are falling. You have to clean it in winter when the snow is falling. And if future parliaments decide that it's not worth the money to spend it here, then they will spend the money somewhere else, because there's always extreme competition about public budgets, and there will be shorter budgets in the future. That's my concern.
Thank you. Thomas first, and then Angelo.
Thank you. I've heard many interesting projects being presented here, and I could say that I would estimate that all these projects could be supported by the new action plan. I'm pretty sure of that. I agree what Matthew said about, well, in a sort of balance your actions to other kind of needs. You also mentioned our work during decades with traffic safety. When it started, it was a law of nature that the deaths in traffic was coupled to traffic volumes. We've changed that. You could decouple, and so you should do with environmental aspects and climate change. But you have to consider that you have to have people with you. You could diminish the death tolls on roads by lowering the speed limits, but if you lower them too much, people won't follow them. And perhaps there will other negative effects. So that's the great big challenge here to get acceptance for what you do. And for those who are perhaps the losers, you have to compensate them and give them a good alternative. And I also agree that perhaps this pandemic could help us to open eyes and new discussions, but we don't know how long this will last. Unfortunately, starting new projects will probably be too late, but so you who are projects running now have to do the best you can to influence the debate.
Yes, the ball is on your side, Angelo. You have to take the people along. That's what Thomas said. I think it plays into your direction. Angelo?
Yeah, I can give the example of Ghent again. Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. You start to your question was about politicians who are afraid. I can repeat the story from Ghent. Philippe Poitet, our alderman, he was not afraid. And after the elections, so he's now for the second time alderman for transport, he was a winner of the elections. And that was because he was not listening to the 5% minority yelling loud on social media, etc., but really going for a strong story. And really, a majority of people are open for change, but they are not always yelling loud. They are electing. They are not on social media always, but they are voting also. Okay.
So all what we need is more stronger and straighter politicians who dare to do something.
And it's not only a story from in bigger cities. You have a bigger majority of progressive people, students who stay in the city. But I have examples also from smaller cities with a conservative government or rather center right-wing parties, but with a very progressive mayor. And he was a winner of the election also because people like politicians who act.
Okay. Joachim, you wanted to contribute, and then there is a comment also from Anton. First Joachim, and then maybe Anton, you can also say your points of step by step. Yeah. Joachim.
Yes, Angelo. First of all, I agree with you that you can't do without participation today. You have to do participation, but still it's a bit tricky. So one thing we have to clarify is whether participation means information of the people, whether it means consultation of the people to integrate their knowledge in your decisions, or whether it means decision-making or co-decision making. And you always have to have a careful balance between the participation exercise and the representative democracy, where you have to fixate certain results to fix them, because there will be latecomers in your participation process who have not taken part in it before, if it takes many years, and they may try to reverse what has already been achieved. So this is really difficult. I want to highlight one other aspect very briefly, and that's the media. The media have a very problematic role, because they always like conflict and they never like a consensus. And the majority who may be in favor of your position, they will not speak up. They will not even come to the public meetings. If there's a football game on TV, they will not show up. So you will be in a room with 100 people opposing what the administration is planning. And if the media are there, they give a public image that the politician is against the population. And this is really difficult to tackle.
Yeah, public meetings are not always good. So it's not really participation in a public meeting. It's very often, okay, this is the story, and now it's up to you. So it's better to create groups of people, to select people and work together.
Just on this point, could I jump in? I completely agree with Angelo.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, just on the point, it might seem strange coming from a European Commission official, but I live in Brussels and I'm active in Brussels. And one of the things that really backed that up has been a fantastic movement, and check them out on social media, called Heroes for Zero. Because they organize commune by commune to establish coalitions for sustainable mobility. So the origins of Heroes for Zero was the death of a journalist who was mowed down by a speeding driver. But the people who join Heroes for Zero, commune by commune, are worried about air quality, or they're worried about CO2 emissions, or they're worried about noise, or they just want a more livable city. And with that coalition, they work with the police, they work with local politicians, and seeing them working with the police says this is not a radical sort of anarchist movement. This is people trying to build a new city from ground up, and it's fantastic to see. And again, it's a great model for cities, if I might cheekily suggest, to look at to build on for the future.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. And Anton, I think you are d'accord with this idea to take people on board, and you write in the chat that it's not so quick. You need to do it step by step.
Yeah, I just that of course it might seem that the change is sometimes quite easy, and then when you look back, it wasn't that difficult. The best things are yet to come, obviously, and the hardest decisions are still in the future. But the thing is that in my experience is that you just when you start doing something, so you will always have somebody to oppose you, and there will be always somebody who will be the loudest voices and the angriest ones. But then step by step, you will get more and more people on board, and I think it's crucial to have as many organizations like cyclist unions, like pedestrians unions, or whatever, on board with you and just listen to them more and get their support, and they will push the politicians back, and then there is more and more people doing that. So that's kind of our way. Like before, well, I told that in 2015. So I was that cycling officer of the city of Vilnius, and then before that, the cyclists union, for instance, was really angry at this, that wasn't doing anything and wasn't listening to anything. And the first thing was to start to listen and to start to talk to as many people as possible, and just to be, this really positive about the change. And then well, I see that more and more people really enjoy and the change, even though nobody likes the change. And another thing I would add is we are talking a lot about now in the city how not to communicate, to be like this anti-car communication, just to say that cars are bad and so on. So it's not the way to do it, because you will have the conflict there as well. You just have to think about other ways to communicate, and we are working hard every day to find those words and everything, and it's still a huge job ahead of us.
But may I ask you, Anton, you have the full freedom to do so many things in your agency. So the politicians above you must be the ones who are encouraged and let you do, and also channel the money.
They are and they are not at the same time. So the courage comes also when you give data or give examples and tell them that these things, well, we did some piloting and everything, and if it works, we show them, and they get more excited. 5 years ago, the politicians, when they came, they kind of wanted, for instance, cycling or walking to be a priority, but they didn't really know what that means. But when you see that 66% more people cycle a year after a year, or we see the increase. They say, yeah, that works. Let's do it, more of it. Of course, there will always be the budgets, and there is still a lot of budgets are given to roads, pavement, just to renew the road as they were in Vilnius. And it's not that all shiny and beautiful, but it's more and more support we get to the more sustainable solutions.
Yeah, thank you. First Kenneth and then Matthew.
Yeah, as it is the European Mobility Week next week, I came to think about how the attitudes of people have changed over the years. In 2001, I helped organize the first car-free day in Karlskrona, connected to the Mobility Week. And the shopkeepers along the streets that we closed off was furious. They were really angry. Actually, we got an invoice from one of the opticians there that he had lost 3,000 euros during one day because we have closed off his street. And he sells glasses. I mean, how you don't need a car to collect glasses, but actually now that street is a walking street, and all the shopkeepers are really happy because they have found that they make more money without the cars than with the cars. And I think actually the attitude in the society has really changed in those 20 years. So now people are more open to living streets and that kind of concepts, and can see the value of getting rid of the cars also.
Yeah, but this is an eternal myth. And until the people don't have the experience themselves, they will not believe. In my street where I'm living in Hamburg, in my entrance, there is an air balloon and plastic packaging stuff, decoration shop. And this lady is against that the street becomes a cycling street because she thinks that then she will not have any more clients. And I don't understand. I don't tend to drive in a car and see a shop and say, oh, now I will buy my air balloon and my present packaging. I mean, I go there if I need such specialized things, but I cannot convince her. So we are disputing every time I enter the house because her shop is just in front. But I think she has first to experience that it will not. She doesn't have to send the bill somewhere. So I don't know, Matthew.
Well, just on that point, there is some quite good data, and I can't remember where I've seen it, which shows that the footfall, meaning, which is the key thing if you're in retail, meaning people that come into your store, is much higher if it's pedestrians or cyclists. And it's obvious if you think about it, because if you're driving past, you can't stop. And and we should think about this maybe for another time, the real battle for real shops is, of course, with e-commerce. And her problem is, your balloon lady, is that the people will go and buy their things on Amazon. So you've got to find a different way of getting people, and all the evidence is that people will come if they can walk or cycle past. I know it's an all-male panel, but we're all agreeing. I wanted to pick up the point that Anton made about not being anti-car, and come back to this thing about the pattern of incentives. It's not about being anti-car, and it's not about being anti-car driver. To use the Belgian example, if we allow the tax system to have a company car, which is basically free for companies to give to their drivers, and they're allowed then to drive into Brussels without paying road tolls to park in free car parks provided their employer, why would people not take their car? I mean, this is the question. We're setting the wrong pattern of incentives. These aren't bad people. We're setting up the wrong system for them. We need to look again, of course, at public transport. We need to make the true cost of driving the car apparent to the driver, and that's the way we will begin to change things. But it's very important in our rhetoric, as much as we want to remove our dependence of our cities on cars, is that we don't make the rhetoric personal, and then we will also help bring people with us.
And what does this have to do with the male panel?
It was just we're all agreeing, I thought.
Is this unusual for male?
Yes, I'll have a fight with someone if that helps.
Okay, so who wanted as the next to give a contribution? I lost the track listening to you. There are many chats. So people agree that we have to talk more about not about car free, but more what was it? Living streets, exactly. I would like to introduce you to a question from my colleagues who were earlier from Zumba project giving me some input what I should ask you. I was afraid that there would be no questions and no points. There is an issue that new mobility concepts are on the rise and are mostly implemented by private companies. We always see a focus on economically interesting areas or groups of people, but the aim of cities should be to create inclusive mobility for all. So what the role should local authorities play, and how much can be left to the free market? How does the city ensure that not only the raisins are picked out, but that offers are made for everyone in the entire city area? Who could a little bit elaborate? Kenneth, yes. And then
I'm not elaborating so much, but I already said earlier that the municipality can help by helping to give the basis for the rent. Of course, this is a private company that we have, and we have it's a public procurement that has led to this private company setting up. But anyway, this. And the municipality that did that, but then the inhabitants are free to use that service. So in that way, we have, from our authorities' side, try to help as much as we can.
So you mean you provide the basic services, and you leave room for the private market, for the raisins, for the economically attractive ones?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Angelo, you had an issue on that, and then Anton?
Yes, there are two things about that. First of all, I think it's important to work together with operators or services that keep the money also inside the community. If you work together with platforms like Airbnb, a lot of money is leaving your city or your country. So create an ecosystem with mass where the local players can become stronger instead of the international platforms. And the other thing I want to say about this is too often new mobility solutions are seen as the market, and then you have the public system, public transport. There's a lot in between. Those private systems, commercial systems, can be seen as a public system also, and it doesn't have to have a close business case neither. You can give support to that. And then on the other way, and now it's too often or public or private that has to make profit. And of course, if you have to make profit as a company, you have to be smart, and you cannot go everywhere.
Yes, and then Anton, and then Joachim.
It's a really hard question. I'd say I was thinking, where is the balance? And probably sometimes there are different approaches. So I can talk about approach of Vilnius with the shared mobility, the e-scooters, what we did. So we liberalized the market. We said any company which wants to come to the city, we don't put any restrictions to you. We sign some kind of memorandum so that you know about the parking, about how you should communicate it with your. But basically, any company could come, and it's about being open to new things, not banning them, but just trying them, and that's also about the citizens and trusting of the users. But then again, the city is here to provide the infrastructure, the basics at first, and then if there is need to regulate, or if there is need to do something about it, I think the city could step in. But for us, the variety and the choice is the first thing. So people will choose which is most convenient way for them to travel if you make all the choices available. And then well, I think different cases, and you can't put in the boxes, you know, all of them. So
yeah. Thank you, Anton. Joachim, also an idea about that?
I think that cities have a really important role to act here very strongly, because Heidrun, in your question, you mentioned the issue of raisin picking or grape picking or cherry picking. And that's exactly what is happening if you let the free market do it. In Bremen, as long as I was in office there, I worked hard with the public transport company to bring them to a development where they are the system integrator also of the flexible systems of mobility, because the mobility on demand or mobility as a service is especially useful for society in remote areas, not in the center. You do not want more free market operators competing with public buses in the center of the city, but rather you need these in the remote areas, and you need these late in the evening or maybe early in the morning. And what I saw in Germany, that there is a legislative basis is still missing to enable cities to take this role very strongly. So at present, the private companies, they have a huge advantage, and I think there's a really big danger of cannibalistic action against the public transport companies. So there's also a severe risk.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm trying to find things to disagree with, and I found a couple. The first point in which I completely agree is that the public transport operators are really in a bind now, and public authorities are in a bind in cities, and that is undeniable, and we have to find a way to help them survive. And as Joachim said, that competition can be extremely unfair. There is a way out of it also, which is that if you look at the whole nature of public service obligations, to take one example, the example of Uber, whether Uber should be let into cities, it depends on what basis they're allowed into cities. For example, this is not an official commission view, this is an idea. You say you can come and pick up people at the airport, but you also have to be at the end of the bus line to take the old lady home with her shopping for a nominal rate. So you can force, as the licensing authorities, private companies to work in your way, as Angelo said, to keep the money in the community. The other point I slightly disagree with is we can sometimes use the market to drive good results. To use example of road pricing within cities, a lot of people say to me, my friends on the left say to me, oh, we shouldn't have road pricing because then the only people who drive into cities will be the rich people in their cars. Well, right now, the rich people in their cars are driving in and they're not paying the true price. And the rich people live in the cities and they have expensive apartments and they go to expensive restaurants, and they should pay the true cost of their driving into the cities. And if you're driving in a big SUV and there's one person in the car and it's a big emitting vehicle, then that road price might be quite a high price to pay. So there are ways in which the market can help straighten things out as well. And we shouldn't be scared of using it and developing partnerships with private companies to deliver sustainable results. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I am here consulting with the bosses of the organizers here if the cable will be cut at a sharp 2 o'clock Latvian time, but they say we are not in Germany, so I have the freedom not to interrupt a nice discussion with you. You see the prejudice about the countries. Is there anybody who wants to contribute to that still, or should we maybe think about a little wrapping up? To avoid that at the end it's only us 7 people here in the loop. Okay, Thomas.
Unfortunately, I have to leave for another meeting starting now at 1 o'clock.
Yes. So
I would like to thank all of you who have participated. Pardon?
What is your final? What is your final message?
I hope you have got information about our work with the new action plan, and I hope also that you will feel comfortable with our actions and our objectives, and that you will be applying for our support, and hopefully will contribute in making a sustainable transport system in our cities. Thank you very much.
Yes, Thomas, and remember to put the word sustainable in big fonts in the action plan. Matthew, your last message. I mean, to the audience,
well,
not in general.
Simply to say it's been tremendous. This has been tremendous fun. Don't forget European Mobility Weeks next week, the first ever European Urban Mobility Days coming up at the end of the month. Please join us for those. And my final hope is that the rest of my day is as much fun as this has been. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Joachim, you also are on the jump to the next meeting.
My final message is do not sit and wait thinking let politicians solve the corona crisis first and afterwards we continue with mobility transformation, but rather use the crisis to bring about new infrastructure and new mobility systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Joachim. Kenneth, your last words.
Well, we will certainly organize the Mobility Week next week, of course, with a lot of things happening. Among those things, a living street with, we have had some decorated bicycles all over the city for this year, for this summer, and now they will all be explored in this street. I think we are close now, so I won't take up more time, but even a small and medium-sized town can do a lot of things.
Kenneth. And the capital, Anton, can also do a lot of things. Final words from Vilnius. Anton is frozen. Then we give the floor to Angelo.
And not so much anymore to say, just congratulations with the organization of this great event, the great party yesterday evening, very inspiring for us how to use those tools for conferences. And we might use it for our event later this year, Shared Mobility Rocks. It's a really inspiring, great team behind this conference. Thanks.
Okay, then I thank you, my dear male panel, and I was very happy very well with you. I hope you felt well with me too. And I would like to tell to all of you that it has been really a great event. 3 days. We were a little bit nervous how we can do such an event with speakers and presentations and questions and party and coffee breaks without seeing. I think it is possible, although it would have been much nicer to have you all for a coffee here in Riga. We have a few last questions to you. About your take-home messages, and we would very be happy if the 70 overleft participants take their mobile phones and go to Menti.com, type in the number, and answer to Marta. Take-home message for you.
Also loved it and never waste a good crisis. That was a good quote to take away.
So, what do we have here? Never give up. Different solutions on how to include. Hop-in works well. Remember the Baltic. Keep going. It's possible to discuss actively in an online meeting. Cities can do more than nations. Communication is key as always. Never waste a good crisis. Joachim, you have created the slogan of the event. Future looks promising. Just need to act to succeed. People first. A lot of possibilities. Sure, doing even small steps matter. And we are on the right track. Yes. Do we have more questions? What is the take-home message from the conference? No, what will you personally change in your mobility pattern as a result of this conference, starting from tomorrow? More e-scooters. Keep on biking and using PT. What is PT? Public transport. Oh, I cannot read it. Nothing. Already perfect. Bike more. Ride e-scooters. I will make a habit of posting in social network on sustainable mobility. Include more online events in post-corona projects. Already checking prices for the electric scooters. Tell my friends and family to skip the car and get on the bike and public transport. Rethink the need for physical conferences again. Try on e-scooters. Walk more. So either physical conferences or e-scooters are the winners of this message here. Travel more often from Ghent to the Baltic region. Yeah, welcome. Good. Are we finished? You have one more, Marta. One more fantastic question for you. Future project ideas. What area of sustainable mobility would be important for your organization? What do you think projects should be about? Shared mobility. Mobility points. Shift to public transport priority. Improving cycling infrastructure. Mobility points, the mobility points, they are everywhere. Developing mobility points, total costs of mobility, making it personal, making sustainable mobility as accessible and comfortable as possible, piloting new public transport solutions, more SUMPs on the Baltic Sea region, sharing the experience from the European level and adapt it to the Baltic Sea region, how to quickly change travel behavior, total costs of mobility, better behavior research, what makes people change, developing mobility project, e-scooters in the city, no suitable infrastructure, improving cycling, limitations for car without being obviously anti-car. That's a good project title for Baltic Sea region. Let's see how that would be evaluated. Sustainable mobility, expansion of e-cars, e-scooters in the city, once more, developing mobility points. I think it comes several times, or do we have it so often? Okay, I think we have exhausted ourselves. That's it. So then I have the honor to say that the Mobility Summit 2020 in Riga and the Baltic Sea region is closed and finished. And Marta and her team will put up the presentations and the write-ups which we have on the website of the Mobility Summit. So you can watch it. We will all actively participate in the European Mobility Week next week with our personal ambitions and our organizations. And what can I say? Let's stay connected. The Zumba project is going for extension. So we have another half a year and we will invite you probably again for an interesting seminar. And I think City Multimobile and BSR Electric are finishing now. So we are looking forward to your final deliverables and your final write-ups. Good luck to you. And let's meet all again and make new projects together. And we will change. Thank you.